Come on, Sissy.
Alright, I think we are all good to go. Hello everyone, welcome back to Crypto Warehouse and to another Simple Signal stream. I think there's been a lot of movement since the last stream I did, especially on Bitcoin and subsequently the entire market, so I'm excited to get into that. Obviously, if you might peek down roughly my head level, you might see some numbers here which are looking pretty good, so we'll get into that in a minute. I will also say, what coins we're looking at, but before I have to oblige to say, check the descriptions out wherever you may be watching. There are some links there, very useful links on YouTube and Binance. If you're not in Telegram, do go join that. It's also in the description of wherever you're watching. And I think that is a note as well. If you want any coins covering in today's stream, just put it in the comments. Just put it in the comments. I already see someone, I think it says Pepe. I think that means to cover Pepe. So I will cover Pepe at the end. I do have a list. A notepad list up of all the coins you want me to cover, and I'll list them down. So just make sure, if you're on Binance especially, just make sure you list it a couple of times just in case I miss it, and I will verbally say I will cover that coin when I do see the message. So if you do want me to cover something and you've messaged it, there is a wall of comments on Binance, so just make sure you put it maybe 1 or 2 times so I know that I can see it properly. So I've listed Pepe, don't worry. But in terms of the coins we normally cover, I'm going to be covering Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and maybe as we go along, either cover the comments people have put with Pepe, for example, and I might look at some other ones we've covered, like WIF, maybe look at Pyth. I haven't looked at Pyth in a while, maybe look at Pyth, just some general coins, which we normally cover anyway. But with all that being said, quickly look at the first part of the stream, which only takes a minute. I just wanted to look at the coin market cap, just to see the percentages, see what's been moving. So we're currently at 51.8 for Bitcoin. I believe the highest I'm not sure what the highest we reached. I do remember 52.3. I think that's where we reached. Well, I know previously. I think today we did reach 52.3. But we will get onto that in a minute. Anything? So, but up 4% in 7 days. So obviously Bitcoin's a bit. It's calmed down a bit from where we saw previously, or I think the stream before last, we saw crazy numbers for Bitcoin. Ethereum's up pretty heavily as well. So we're generally up, which is good. I like to see what I'm getting into before we do the charts, just to see what sort of movements we expect to see for the coins we normally cover anyway. I do want to check one more coin, because it is my traditional thing I check, is to look at Thorchain. There it is. So we're generally up for Thorchain, even though it's small percentages. If we're generally up for Thorchain, we're generally up, and that is my. Some people have their inverse Kramers. Some people have, mainly people look at Bitcoin. For me, it's Thorchain. I have a love-hate relationship with Thorchain. As people who are avid viewers of Crypto Warehouse will know, I do talk about Thorchain a lot. It is also obviously a joke. I don't look at that mainly, but I do like to look at it because it holds something special in my heart. It does sort of hold it somewhere there. But regardless, I'm going to get onto Bitcoin now. Quickly look at the chart. Load. There we go. Okay, that's not my chart. Why is it so? Okay, there we go. Okay, yeah, perfect. Okay, looking good. So I haven't looked at the charts in a while. Now it did happen, although it didn't go down as low as I thought it would. Which went to the top of this range. So that's very interesting. So if people are, if they've watched some of the streams, maybe the last 3 streams, maybe, but we have basically talked about. Actually, I can probably check. It's about Wednesday. So Wednesday, Friday. Yeah. So I think we did it. I looked at it on Saturday. I looked at it on Wednesday and Monday. So I would have looked at it a couple times now. So if you're not familiar with what I've basically been saying for Bitcoin, I was kind of under the scenario because I kind of zoomed out a bit, recognized this sort of movement, and then saw the similarities in between. We had these 2 big candles and then we crabbed, fell below quite a bit, and then went upwards. So we had the same situation. We had 2 candles, kind of crabbed a bit. Obviously, it was a wider range than I thought, but we still crabbed. Fell below. It hasn't really done, it hasn't done this section of things in terms of going up, but we do have really heavy resistance at these levels here. So I think the highest we saw 52.4, 52.5. So we're breaking up steadily. But you know, again, we're kind of just in this bit, you know, on a wider scale thing. We're kind of just in this draw box, kind of just in this range here. You know, kind of stuck. You know, we haven't really broken above anything mainly. Obviously, we've got 52.5 and 52.8. It's been quite hard for us to break up about anything. But you know, as we inch closer to the all-important date, you know, we'll still see more and more rapid movement as we get closer before then. But interestingly, I did point this fair value gap out. Not sure exactly when. I'm not sure if it was on stream or if it was on Saturday stream. I think it might have been a bit earlier, maybe on like a Wednesday or a Friday. I don't think I know. I think it might have been a Wednesday. I found this fair value gap on the 1 hour, and it's frozen. There we go. So, well, it was important because obviously we were basically going in a higher trend, and then we broke that down here. So obviously we've had our structure shift, but we went down and then went up again. And this structure shift coincided with this fair value gap forming, and this was a huge movement. But what kind of separated it from the regular things I look at for fair value gaps was the movement was how high the movement was and how rapid it was. Obviously, I know it's a 3-candle formation, but you know, we are on the 1 hour, and it was kind of this situation we're in. That's quite loud. That is. There we go. There we go. Okay. Anyway, yeah. So the fair value gap forming, it was a lot more rapid and higher than you normally see, especially for Bitcoin. Like normally you see smaller ones, but this movement, it was like 2% and 2%. It was like a whole 4%, nearly 5% movement in 2 candles for Bitcoin. Obviously, we had the 3rd candle down here, but obviously, what was more important about it as well is how well structured it was. You know, we had a very small wick here. So obviously, we've got our main candle. You on the first candle for the fair value gap, you want like a small high wick or a high wick and not a low wick. And here we had equal wicks here, but it was a lot more. Like I said, it was a lot more structured and thicker than anything else we'd really seen. Move that back. There we go. Yeah, so I pointed that out, and it seemed like we absolutely just it was just 1-to-1. And obviously, I do say this quite often when I look at fair value gaps. It's not like a be-all, end-all type of you know, thing to draw. It's not like it's gonna always happen 100% of the time. But you know, when it does happen quite often, otherwise people wouldn't be using it. So you know, like I said, we did enter. I don't know if you can probably see the structure of it on the 4 hour here. Yeah, I mean, you can kind of. I mean, on the 4 hour, you can kind of see if we do this. You know, we entered this fair value gap here and then went upwards. Entered and went upwards. Obviously, it was probably better on the 4 hour due to the fact that the normally for a fair value you kind of go to the midpoint of the fair value gap and then go upwards. So if we were to make this, if you use this fair value gap on the 4 hour, we can see here. You know, we have this fair value gap formed on both the 1 hour and the 4 hour. And then we enter into it. Obviously, we've already entered into it before, and we came, you know, crashing up. But it still was valid. Normally, when the fair value gap, you know, when you enter into it and go upwards, it's normally invalidated. But sometimes it can occur again. But what was very interesting to me is how accurate it is. So normally, the fair value gap, like for the more accurate ones, obviously, you can enter it here and, you know, just quickly enter it and go rocketing back up. But normally, you have the limit for the fair value gap is going between the top line, or you know, depending on if you're bullish or bearish, in terms of if it's a bullish or bearish fair value gap. You either go from the top line, in this case bullish, go from the top line of the fair value gap or the little box you draw, and this midpoint here, the fair value gap. And obviously you can see on this chart here, this dotted line, which is the midpoint of this rectangle we have, or nearly a square, I suppose. It's basically literally right at the midpoint here. So this is pretty perfect, both on the 4 hour and the 1 hour. They both kind of say the same thing, which was pretty good. But I didn't really look at I normally look at the 1 hour to see a more, you know, a more in-depth candle or price action. You see the smaller candles. I drew it on the 1 hour. I didn't actually look at the 4 hour for Bitcoin. But regardless, we still had, you know, we quickly entered. This was, for me, the fair value gap on the 1 hour was more appropriate than the 4 hour, because the 4 hour, as we saw, you know, we already entered it over here at 5 p.m. Wednesday. We already, you know, quickly entered back into it and went upwards. So for me, if I obviously, like I do say, it can still occur that you can enter into it and come back upwards from the fair value gap. However, I would advise, for myself anyway, advise to not really look at that just in case. But like I said, for the 1 hour, it formed and we hadn't entered it, and then we quickly entered it over here and came right back up. So, you know, obviously on simple significance, it indicates the lowest and the highest points you see over a time frame. And as you can see, we had this lower area at 50,620. But you know, I think I've kind of made the same point a couple times before when I've looked at, you know, when Bitcoin was having its ETF, when we looked at like 40,700, I think it was, or whichever price it was back here, is when you have rapid movement downwards of the price, and yet it comes to the same position twice. So for example, you know, we had this huge rapid movement downwards to about 50,800, and then we came right back up to it twice. So for me, 50,800 is a strong point of our price, which is the top range of this kind of support point, 50,600. So I'm going to point out 50,830 roughly. So just another support point to bear in mind. But I am going to delete some of these lines because they are very annoying. Let me just delete some of these. This is some old drawings, so I'm going to kind of get rid of some of these because we've kind of already seen it. We've already seen this. I think this must have been like a 4 hour or something. I'm going to delete it anyway. Actually, no. Let me check where it is. Right. So okay. This has already happened. We entered the fair value came up. Okay. So that was a pretty structured fair value gap. However, obviously it is done now. So I'm going to delete that. I just kind of want to get things out the way. There we go. I think I'm going to leave some of that. It's not in the way. Okay. There we go. So it's kind of messy currently. I'm going to delete these purple lines as well, even though obviously they kind of have played out. Everything's just kind of in the way, and it's really, really, really messy. Okay, so we had this bottom fair value gap from what it seems. We haven't entered this, but this is again going to be another support point. So we've got 50,800 and 50,270 as areas for our price to kind of bounce off of. So you know, that is good and that is pretty structured. So you know, obviously, you know, it's decently far away. But it looks like we're kind of in this double range where we've got two resistance points up here, you know, off 52,800 and 52,480. On the bottom end of things, we've got 50,270 and 50,800. So we've kind of got this double sandwich thing going on with our Bitcoin price. So without looking, obviously I'm going to look at Market Cipher in like 2 seconds. But obviously looking at what we've got right now, we kind of had, you know, a typical situation where, let me get this up, there we go. If I draw from the middle of this range here and do premium discount, there we go, that is just perfect. And then draw the midpoint of this, you know, inner area for the range. Make sure I get that on top, there we go. I just full screen the whole website, hold on, there we go, I feel that didn't too messy. Also, let me make sure the sidebar, it's actually a bit messy, hold on, let me change that. There we go, perfect. I didn't realise it was a bit off to the side. Anyway, back to it. So we've got the midpoint of this range we're in. Obviously the lower end and the upper end of things. I'm going to delete this actually due to the fact that it's... Actually, no, I'm going to keep it. I'll keep both areas here just so I can point them out easier. There we go. Perfect. So we've kind of got this range going on with this midpoint where, you know, if you're above it, you look for longs. Or if you're above it, you look for shorts. If you're below it, look for longs. This kind of situation where we're keeping above the midpoint, you know, try to dip below it, keeping above the midpoint. So, you know, I've pointed this out in a couple of other graphs before, where we're kind of going to have this range. 51.5 is going to be kind of our middle point, where obviously you can kind of, on a shorter, not really, obviously on the 1 hour, so not shorter time frame in terms of, you know, Market Cipher when we go to the 5 minute, or trading view when we go to the 5 minute. But in terms of, you know, we have these little moments here where we're above, a little moment here. But oh no, I can't measure. There we go. Little moment here about, you know, 3 days. But we could have a little moment down here for another 3 days. So not in terms of lower time frames, but in I'm talking about a lower, a short like burst below or above in terms of our situation with the Bitcoin price. So you know, currently we had this area before we dipped below of about 3 days. We've got this area of 3 days. So I could probably see it if I redraw it. Going about like once, twice, and 3 times, somewhat along those lines maybe. You know, depending on if we break below it or not. But currently, from what we see, obviously we are above this midpoint, so we're going to be kind of basing our price. And as we can see, we can test back pretty easily. We can see, we bounced off it near here. Obviously, this discount premium midpoint kind of understanding, obviously it's not really a set in stone situation. It's kind of just numbers and percentages. So it's nothing really something you should base all your TA or investments on. It's kind of just a rule of thumb I like to go off of when I look at ranges. Obviously, if we're going up in a normal trend, it's different. But we're currently in this kind of normal range. We're kind of in a measurable area of price in between this kind of 3% area. So I can apply this midpoint premium rule or not, and kind of keep it going. Rather than keeping it on the trend. So I couldn't really do it over here, for example, but I'm going to use it over here. Obviously, if you disagree with it, whatever. But, we can see we have been bouncing off it and respecting it throughout this entire trend. We can see, especially over here, this was pretty good. We kept on trying to dip below it, however, coming back upwards, above these equilibrium points. So from what it seems to me, for now, we're respecting this top point, or this top area of our range. So in terms of seeing price action, if I want to look at anything right now, I would just say we're going to continue to go downwards towards 51,500 and then go back upwards to 52.2. But quickly look at market cipher, just to see what's going on. We are oversold on our market cipher, on our momentum wave. It doesn't between the dark blue area and the light blue, which is kind of the bit. So if you use the moving average convergence divergence or the MACD, you'll be familiar with this kind of concept of looking at EMAs. I believe it's like you can look at different ones. There might be like a 200 and I think there's a support band I know Mike uses, which is like the 50-day and the 200-day moving average, something along those lines. But it's kind of that same concept with the wave trend here. Where obviously when they cross, it changes the momentum. But as we can see, we're quite separated in terms of these averages. So we're going to continue to go downwards, in terms of our price. So I don't expect it to quickly cross anytime soon, unless we see something really drastic. In terms of looking at the other parts of market cipher, we can see we are quite heavily negative in our VWAP. Which is going to be a negative thing. With the VWAP, you can kind of look at whether we're above or below the zero line, which is either if it's negative or positive. Obviously, we are negative right now, so it's going to be kind of more based on if it's negative or positive rather than what direction. Obviously, the direction is still very important in terms of before the candle prints, but we're still going to be in a negative trend, especially coinciding with what we've got from the momentum. However, we are going upwards, so while we've got, and I do say this, I try to say this every single time, the VWAP kind of predecesses the momentum movement, which predecesses the money flow. So as we can see, we start to go downwards for our VWAP, starts to go downwards here, and then this starts to go downwards, our money flow. So obviously, and then we've kind of got upwards movement on two things. We start to kind of go upwards. Obviously, it takes quite a lot for the momentum to start moving, especially. But especially on the short time frames, you need to pay attention to VWAP because it's more of a faster moving indicator or a representative of the price. Obviously, volume weighted average price. It's quite fast moving. It's quite rapid. So it's something you shouldn't read solely based on. But if you're scalping quickly on the lower time frames, you could actually just use the VWAP. Obviously, it's not advisable, but you could trade just based on the VWAP, whether it's going to go up or down, and it's negative. So you could do that. But we're on the higher time frames. We're on the 1 hour. I'm not going to do that. But if we continue to go upwards, we're going to see momentum start to go upwards again and whatnot. But we're quite separated with our momentum. With our two lines, so it's not going to happen, very soon. But it could happen over the period of our candles continuing to go down towards the 50,000 or 51,500 mark, which is pretty much exactly where this midpoint is. So it's looking like we're going to continue to go down for a tiny bit more before we see ourselves go upwards. But from what I can see, we are below our EMA. Which has been respected pretty heavily by Bitcoin. So it's not like we're going to quickly shoot back upwards, to the 50,300 mark. Obviously, if it's some external news, numbers outside of the chart, it could happen. But from what I'm reading right now, as I say after or before every stream, or whenever I say do a trade, it's not financial advice. I'm just reading the data which I have in front of me. It's not like I'm doing a deep dive into deep economics or anything like that, or pure economics. It's just based on this data right here. I haven't actually looked at the comments really. I'm kind of just engrossed in trying to basically break this down. So we do have Kishan, who says, good evening, everyone. World's best live crypto streaming channel, Mike and Brogan Legends Rocket. No, Kishan, you're a legend, okay? You are a legend. One of the biggest legends we have. Obviously, I find it hard with the community to try and compliment and thank a group of people. It feels like I'm alienating another group of people. But it's how I feel. Mohammed, you know what? Mohammed has been very consistent in terms of the Simple Signal streams. So I thank you, Mohammed, for joining our streams. And we did say, I think Kishan, you were saying it's more whatever you spend. If you do spend like I think it's like $3 we have or something like that for the members. That is just an additional on top of being here and supporting us. And as I said last time we talked about that, I think it was last stream. Just being here and supporting and being consistent and commenting is more than enough for me. So I do thank you for being a consistent viewer, both of you. And I would say that to Jason, but it doesn't seem like Jason's here, which is a shame, but what can you do? And there hasn't really been looking like there's anything on Binance. I'm trying to keep my eye out if there's any coins, anyone wants to cover or wants me to cover on the stream. So if you do, again, I'm going to say it again, if you do want me to cover a coin later on in the stream, do put it in the comments. And like I've said, try and put it a couple of times if you're on Binance, that is, because there's a lot of comments on Binance. So do make sure you, post it a couple of times before I, put it in my notes. I will say, when I do see the comments, I'll say I'm covering that coin. But anyways, back to this. So like I said, it looks like we're going to continue to move down to this midpoint, as I've pointed out, before we start to see ourselves go up. So, on an overarching trend for Bitcoin, it kind of just looks like we're going to be in this kind of price, bump action before we see either some big numbers or something catch up to us where we could actually break out of this. But again, this isn't going to be, super long term. But, to be fair, it's been about 5 days of this, back from the 14th. So, it's been a consistent thing. A consistent price area to look at. But, if we didn't have this dip, I wouldn't be pointing out this midpoint. So, for the time being, it just looks like that this 51,500 is a support point. So it looks like we're in the midpoint right now. I always hate looking when we're in a range and seeing that we're at the midpoint of a range, because it's always hard to determine, where our price is going to go. Obviously, if we're in a downtrend, it makes sense to go down, but I always hate being in the middle. I always like, I'd rather, me start the stream and we're already down at 51.5, and for me to just say we're going straight up. But like I said, I think we're going to go down to 51.5. Money flow, as you might have heard before, is king. So it, is kind of, especially on the higher time frames, it is kind of, it's hard to say. It just looks like it's frozen. So. But we are kind of going down, as you can see. If I get the pen out, we're still technically going down. So we could see ourselves go closer towards the zero mark. But we're not. If I look back here, this is more of a better example. This is huge movement for money flow. So especially, as I always say, the higher you are, the longer you have to fall, and the harder you're going to fall. And likewise for if you're really low, for example, if you're in water and a balloon, that sort of situation, if you pull it down harder, you're going to shoot up faster. But we're not really too high on the money flow. We're not really anywhere, considerable to fall from. So it just looks like a really passive trend downwards. And it is neutral right now. However, we are in the down area. But something with things being neutral, it's an equal movement of upwards or downwards. If we were going down and still had a negative trend, but not as negative as we saw before, it would be easy for me to say we're still going down. Obviously, it's slowing down a bit, but we're still going down. With money flow being neutral, it's harder for me to say we're going down still, because it could have the similar situation which you just saw back here, where it flattened out basically, went upwards, and we had this huge candle back upwards, and then continues to go downwards. So the similar situation can happen again, where we have a quick movement upwards of like an hour of the money flow, and we're going to bounce up to 52,000 and then come down. So I'm just kind of prefacing that for my analysis. However, if that does happen, regardless, we're still technically going downwards. We still have, if I draw it over a longer period of time, we still have a negative movement of our money flow. So regardless of what we do, if we wick upwards or not, I think we're still going to continue going downwards. Not for long though. You know, as I've said, only really like a 1% movement downwards. So I don't really think we're going to move too crazy downwards. But I do think this range is what we've been. You know, I'm not saying anything crazy here. We've been in this range for 5 days, so it's not really, you know, hard for me to say we're going to not, you know, we're going to continue to stay in this range. But you know, that's basically it for Bitcoin. I don't really see much happening for Bitcoin. It doesn't really seem too exciting right now. And there's not really any news which I know of, which is really exciting anyway. What's reassuring is that there's a bunch of red dots above this dotted line, which basically means it is a local high. And this local high seems like it's basically at this resistance point. So this resistance point at 52.5 is definitely confirmed in my books anyway. And this point at 50,800, it's not as confirmed as it was, or as it is for 52,500, or 52,000, sorry, or 52.3, whatever this is, 52, whatever. However, it is still, we did bounce off it, you know, pretty harshly down here. But we also do have this fair value gap, which we haven't, oh no, we did enter, but you know, we still haven't entered to the midpoint, and we've still got a bunch of areas. So we do have quite a lot supporting us, which I said before I went into, you know, yapping. But we have, you know, covered Bitcoin for a long time without much really looking, you know, there's not really much to say. You know, we're not going to have this huge trend, this huge swing. But, you know, in these streams, I normally cover Bitcoin for quite a lot of time and then kind of spend less time on Ethereum and whatnot. But I'm going to move on to Ethereum now. Help if I can spell. While I look at the comments. It's a pleasure to listen to your classes, sir. Thank you. That is a very good compliment. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'm glad. Some people, there's varying degrees of agreement. There's a consistent person on Binance who said I spoke very fast. So hopefully, you know, if you do join a couple times, I have seen you very, very consistently on the stream. So I'm glad you can understand me. Especially, I do speak quite fast. But you know, thank you for that. But back to Ethereum, it's moved a lot more rapid than it has, that, you know, Bitcoin has, for example. So we have, you know, strayed quite far away from previous TA I've drawn. I will leave it there though, because it's not really in the way. I'm going to make this a bit smaller so I can see what's going on. So we are above. Now it's hard, you know, as good as simple significance is. I did make this indicator, and if you do want to go check it out, you know, do message me in Telegram. You know, it's a really easy, fast, really secure, you know, support and resistance drawing indicator on TradingView. So if you do consistent drawing of the charts on TradingView, then do check this indicator out. It does save me a lot of time, you know, especially from dragging on the volume and having to draw lines. It does get a bit messy. This just makes it so much easier for me anyway. But one thing is, it does look at over a longer period of time, so it doesn't have really rapid support resistance points. So I might have to go on the shorter time frames to find if there's any lower points of support resistance. However, it's going to get less and less confirmed as we go. So it looks like 29.5 could be something. So I'm going to draw that quickly. Again, they're not going to be anything really secure, but we did bounce off of it there. But actually, what I haven't looked at in a while is using Fibonacci levels. Because, I don't know, the simple significance has just been so great to me that I haven't needed to use it too crazy. We don't really have a big trend going on in terms of higher points. But my mouse is stuck. Okay, there we go. It does seem like we do have our supports here. So we've got about 29 or 2,900. You know, the problem is coming from Bitcoin. You know, talking about Bitcoin, obviously you can say 51.2 and whatnot, but then look at Ethereum, it's only really in the thousands, so you know, the language change is pretty drastic. But it does seem like we have this kind of area going on, and what I always like to do with a little area is have our premium and discounts. It's not really, I mean, I don't really use it too often, but I just like to draw the midpoint of a range because it does seem like something, you know, always pretty considerable when I have things. So, you know, we can see we did bounce off this midpoint pretty heavily, and then so it looks like we kind of did this action. You know, we bounced off the top, bounced off this top, and came down, maybe either continuing to go upwards or breaking above this point, which I wouldn't be surprised. So the next point I can only really go off of. I didn't mean to do that. Let's just pretend that looks okay. Oh, crap. Ah, there we go. That's good enough. The only real point I can go off of is round numbers and whatnot and big thousands. So that's all I can really say. So it's only really looking at the next point for Ethereum. Obviously, we do have a consistent, we do bounce off consistent points, above and above. So I'm not saying there's going to be nothing between 29.5 and 30,000, but considering going from 28.5 to near the 29,000, it wasn't a very hard task. So going from 29.5 to 30,000, I don't think it's going to be a hard task either. What I'm saying is that moving in between this area without there being much resistance or support, I wouldn't be surprised. So that's really only what I see for this action. So as I just drew, what I could see happen is, since we've already had this, we bounced off midpoint, came down, bounced off this point, came down, maybe coming up to here and going to the midpoint, which is like roughly here. So we could have something like this for Ethereum, where we're basically kind of arcing out and going towards the bottom. Obviously, we kind of already bounced off it. It's kind of hard to see on the 1 hour. It looks like we've already kind of bounced off of this midpoint, and what I can see next is going upwards towards 29.5 and beyond. However, saying that, looking at market, hold on, let me zoom in. There we go. Hold on. Looking at market cipher, we are dangerously close to the 60 mark, and for, it is an arbitrary number. However, more time than not, I guess you could say, more often than not, I'm not going to say the American way of oftentimes, more often than not, being above the 60 mark or below this minus 60 mark in terms of the momentum, it's more of a general, it's more, hold on, let me show an example. So down here, for example, we had this red dot. We might have gone down a tiny bit, but it's not really, it was just a general movement. And with market cipher, it does draw red dots pretty often, especially on the short time frames. Things can draw a lot faster because of printing out. So I wouldn't be surprised if we were mid downwards movement for Ethereum, and then we printed out to the 3 a.m. mark, and then we had a red dot there. So not every single red or green dot is necessarily a indication. And also, if you do want market cipher for A or B, or these representative versions, do go ask in Telegram. It does help a lot using these. But yeah, anyways, back to this. So obviously we had this green dot, and it obviously played pretty well. We weren't below the 60 mark, or we weren't even oversold. But to kind of counteract that, our money flow was going positive, and it did arc and go positive at the same time that the momentum went up. So even though I would advise, even if I didn't have the money flow there and I was just looking at the momentum and saw that it, went upwards at the 30 mark, I wouldn't really recognize it too much. But, we weren't at the 60 mark, so we weren't overbought, so it still had room to go upwards. But, like I said, I've been saying, the money flow is more important on the higher time frames, and it was going positive, so we did have a positive movement. We are still going positive, and going positive strong we are. So, we still have, not incentive, we still have indication that we're continuing to go upwards for Ethereum. However, our VWAP, which is the kind of not trailing, but it's kind of the predecessor, as I want to use different words, I don't want to say the same word every single time, but it precedes the action of the momentum wave and money flow. But importantly, what we can see by the momentum is it's starting to get really close to the 60 mark in terms of crossing over to become negative again. Now, the last time we saw this was over here, and we did have a negative movement for Ethereum, basically a 1% movement, and the momentum came crashing down pretty rapidly. So we could see the same scenario where, I'll get the pen out, where we could see, ourselves have a red dot and then come downwards. However, saying that, the higher we go, the more positive we go as we go higher, the more important, the more powerful it gets. However, as soon as we start to arc on the money flow, it'll start to come crashing down. So, we're getting further and further away from being safe. So big movements can occur pretty rapidly in the scenario we're in right now. But what could always happen, which we see it over here, and actions like here where green dots will print out pretty rapidly, or green and red dots will print out pretty rapidly. It doesn't really necessarily mean anything. So we could have a scenario where we cross to a red dot here and then continue to go upwards. But regardless, we are basically at the 60 mark. So if we just about print ourselves negatively above the 60 mark, I do see ourselves either coming down below this midpoint and coming down, which it is a it is a conflicting statement against what I've just said with this white line. But again, using that white line, it's not really going off data, it's just going off, price action pattern. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen. It was just something I recognized in the price action. But looking at, like I said, VWAP is going down nearly to the negative, which does, if it continues to do that and actually stays to the negative and goes, minus 10, for example, we could see our momentum go negative. And then 2 out of the 3 is going negative in terms of VWAP and momentum. And then it's no time. It's as soon as we see a momentum go downwards, we will see price, pretty rapidly go, not pretty rapidly, just go downwards in general. But as I do say quite often, market cipher just kind of points to us which direction we're going to go in. It doesn't really tell us for how much we're going to go, or from what support or resistance point, or insignificant price point we're going to go to. So we could just see a quick movement down to 29.2 and then continue to go back upwards. I see someone say FIL. I don't know if that's Phil or FIL, whatever you say, but I will add that to the list. So thank you for that. There we go. So yeah, like I was saying, it does have a conflicting statement between this price action and the momentum and money flow waves. But as it still stands, we are still quite positive for market cipher, and VWAP is a quite rapidly moving line. So it doesn't necessarily mean we're going to go negative now. We could just bounce off this 0 mark and go upwards, which then means 3 out of 3 is going up, which means we're going to continue to go upwards. So I wouldn't be surprised if we do see ourselves, continue to go upwards. However, we are at the bottom end of this range. So even if we do come down to 29.2 or 2,920, it's not really far away from where we are right now. Where we are right. I don't know why I did that. There we go. It's only like a 0.5 movement down from where we are right now. So even if we do go down a bit, we don't have a lot to move, but we have a lot to go upwards of. So I think 30,000 is going to be, obviously it's huge. Going from 2,900 to 3,000 is going to be pretty huge. So do bear that in mind. However, I do think we do have like about a 2% movement for Ethereum going upwards, especially how Bitcoin is very close to going to its bottom point and going upwards. We do have some future looking positive going uppage in terms of the market. Especially due to Bitcoin being kind of the leading market sentiment provider, I suppose you could say. So Bitcoin looks like it's going to go up quite soon, and in turn, Ethereum does look like it's going to go up soon as well. So we could see a general positive movement. So I kind of see a positive movement for Ethereum very soon. If it doesn't happen right now, it'll happen very soon, like I said. So I do see a 2% movement upwards. To 30,000 roughly, but again, like I said, we're at the highest point for Ethereum. We don't actually have a proper resistance point for Ethereum, so 29,500 could be a really heavy resistance point, but we don't know because we haven't really seen enough evidence to suggest it is. So the best we have is this area of support. We don't have anything above us because this is as high as we've seen in a while, so it's not really pointing anything out. But quickly to move on to Solana. We've been live for about 38 minutes, which is pretty good, considering how long we've been. That is just perfect, isn't it? Wow, look at that. So our bullish breaker block has worked once more. So I drew this breaker block. Let me have a sip of water. My mouth gets my throat and mouth get dry, so I do need a drink. So the Solana chart. So I drew this breaker block quite a while ago. We had this area here. I don't know if I drew this on the 4 hour or not, but basically, what happened was we kind of let me recognize what I've drawn. I think basically we had this area here of equal width or height, sorry, for the candles where it drew along. It's basically this order block. Yeah, here it. Okay, there we go. Perfect. So we had this order block, negative, bearish. We bounced off it pretty accurately back here. And then the normal structure of how a breaker block occurs is we have quickly, obviously on the 4 hour it'll look a bit better, I think. It doesn't. It's a bit tight. It's hard to see, but it's there. Trust me. We bounced off it, but the normal action of breaker blocks, as probably some of you, if you do use this kind of if you do use this terminology for breaker blocks and whatnot, if you do, you'll recognise the movement is kind of, it goes to the top, up here. Obviously, we have this wick recognising we probably went up and then came back into it, normally to the midpoint, but it can basically, it's just a general entry back into the block here, and then continue to go above it and staying above the order block, which forms this bullish breaker block, which basically in turn means, we can dip below it, but we kind of bounce off it pretty consistently. So we can see we bounced off it, or we entered back into it, but came right back up again. Entered it back here on Saturday, which was very recent, which is why I'm pointing it out. Entered it, the midpoint of it, which is even more perfect, and then went right back up again. So that is still something to point out. We do have this 114.03 mark. I think I drew this quite a while ago. It seems like I was wrong. Yeah, I know why I was wrong about this, because basically Bitcoin didn't do exactly what it was supposed to do in the time it took. However, if you extend the crab, it was supposed to do this, but it didn't actually do this. Although Bitcoin did do this, Solana didn't actually do this because it continued to go downwards, which is fine. It does, Solana is a big coin. It does have a mind of its own. So it didn't move like that, but it did. It did have the upwards crab movement downwards, but it just had another red wick or huge red candle breaking below the support point. But we quickly bounced off here and came right back up again, which is good to see. So in terms of where we are right now, I drew the 114.5 mark. Quite a while. I think it might have been back here. On Monday. So I drew this back on Monday, which was about that's about 6 days ago. Wait, 6. Sorry, what is it? What's the date today? Can't open that. There we go. 19th. So, and when was Monday? Actually, it was about Tuesday. I don't think I covered it on Tuesday. It was roughly Monday, I think. So about 7 days ago. Let me cancel that. There we go. Monday, Tuesday time. Obviously, I didn't stream on Tuesday, but Monday last week, basically a week ago. I'm overcomplicating it, but basically a week ago, I did draw this line. I think I drew this quite a bit ago. Actually, this is Fair Value Gap, interesting, good. So basically, we entered this Fair Value Gap. I always like to zoom out because I draw things which are drawn ages ago and they don't actually align with what I'm talking about. So I need to extend them. But basically, this was very nice actually. I'm getting sidetracked, but I do like to point this out. This was when we had that news where we didn't have any news, which was bad news. We basically did the opposite of what I said we would. But regardless, we would have entered this Fair Value Gap and basically came back down. But it happened a bit later on. I think I might have covered. I don't know if I covered this, but basically Friday, basically 10 days ago, we entered into this Fair Value Gap. We used it and obviously came right back down again. Used the bullish breaker block and came back up again. So that was quite a neat little situation we had. But going back obviously to where we are right now, I'm waffling. We do have this area here. You know what? It'd actually be easy if I drew a square. Or use the rectangle tool, whatever you want to say. I'll do it in between these dotted lines actually, because it's more accurate. And then have the midpoint here. There we go. So we've got this midpoint, which we've bounced off of. Have we respected it? We kind of did. It's not obviously we bounced off it here, came down again. We didn't really respect it in this area. This was kind of rapid. We bounced off it again here, 112, but. Regardless, we're near the middle of this range. But if Solana moves anything like how Bitcoin does, which it might do, which we could see over here as I get onto Mark Cypher, but we'll get onto that in a minute. Interesting, we also had this anchor trigger wave as well, which is interesting. But if it moves anything like how I think Bitcoin may move, we will see a continuance down to 111.3. And maybe I'll probably come back up to. I reckon we could probably even come up to 113.5. Here, but again, like I said, for Ethereum, we're probably going to be, moving upwards. But for Bitcoin and Solana, we're kind of in this range, as we can see, here, from about just basically a day ago. Actually, it's not even a day ago. No, yeah, roughly a day ago. I'm from 12 o'clock. So 9 hours ago, 10 hours ago. I wanted to give it some more validity, but it's not really anything really too valid. But we are in a range technically. We have starting to form a general range for Solana. So it's in a similar situation how Bitcoin is. and seeing as though we are in a similar situation, it'll probably move similar to how Bitcoin does. So I could see it, coming down to 111.3, 111 area, and then coming upwards to about 113 and a half here. Seeing what Market Cipher tells us, we did have this area. Now, anchor trigger waves, as some of you may know from as I've talked about in the past, if you have watched, then this is formation. We have a huge wave here, and then a area down here below, and then a smaller wave, where you have, obviously it's pointing to us as it's so basically we have this. Oops, that's pretty bad actually. We have positive upwards price between here and here, but then a negative on the money flow. So it's indicating bearish divergence, which it has followed out, but it also coincides with what a anchor trigger wave basically tells us, which is this we have a huge wave here, this middle area where we kind of hover, and then a smaller wave in our wave trend, which indicates if we're above the line, we're going to go down. If we're below, we're going to go upwards. And we are above the line, so we did go downwards. We are, for our wave trend, which is our momentum, we are just a bit below the zero line. So we're not too overbought, we're not too oversold, but we are technically negative, so we are technically oversold, but we're not anything considerable. We do have our money for our VWAP. It was heavily negative. Looks like it's quite rapidly going to start to go upwards. So that is obviously a predecessor. So we could have a similar situation where we had, with here, where we have a small little wave, peak at below. We could have a similar situation with a small little wave peak below, and then go back upwards again, in terms of the momentum, and be, bullish again. Looking at the money flow, we do have a positive money flow. So money flow is positive, and our VWAP is positive. So it looks like we are kind of positive right now. So what that says to me is we have this sort of situation where we've bounced off this price point here a couple times now. At what price is this? 111.5. So it looks like we're at this 111.5 mark. We've bounced off it again and going upwards. So we might actually not reach this 111.25 mark. We could have actually bounced already and start to go upwards. But again, we do have this midpoint, which we kind of haven't really used too well. But I'm looking, we do have this kind of equal width candle going on here, which we came above. Okay, this is quite interesting actually. Let me delete these lines quickly. So this looks like a really small order block area. So try, envision this with me. Bullish order block, we have this equal width candles, and then we go above it, we enter it, exit out of it, bounce off the midpoint and come below, which then basically turns into a bearish breaker block. So, if that is the case, we are going to continue to go downwards towards 111.25 because this is going to be a breaker block again. But this isn't a very big order block, so it could just be a one and done situation. However, it does seem like that is the case. As you can see, we have this equal width candles go upwards, bounce, come to the breaker block. We should have bounced off of 102.68. And then consider to kind of it be in the positive range, but I mean hold on, I'm seeing something here, envisioning. It does seem like between the top print of this candle and the bottom print of this candle, which is the range we're in, the midpoint of this range is exactly where the order block is. So from what it seems like to me, is we should have bounced off it, but we didn't. So it does seem like it is actual breaker block, which does is proper. We've bounced off them. We've come below the breaker block. We've had liquidity to bring us below, and we've actually touched the midpoint, which is what normally happens at a breaker block. And the last part of this scenario is that we now come below and continue to go downwards for Solana. So I'm gonna re-back up my statement of going down to 111.25 before we start to go up again. Similar to how Bitcoin's going to go down to its bottom point before we see ourselves go up again. So I think Solana and Bitcoin are going to do the same situation. I'm going to draw a quick path right now. Kind of this situation, we'll go down. We could bounce off the breaker block here or here. So I'll draw here, and I will draw here as well. But we just need a time. This isn't very big and it's not very long term, so it could be very quick before we see ourselves go up again to here. So, but the thing I am pretty confident on is that we're going to go towards this 111.25 mark and then go up again. Whether we bounce off this order block or not is something to look at based on market cipher. But what is conflicting, similar to how Ethereum was with its movement, I think it was Ethereum, is the fact that VUP is going up, money flow going up, everything's kind of starting to go upwards and point upwards. So it's hard to say, but I think we could have a similar situation again where we go upwards. There is conflicting information, so it's quite hard for me to have a confirmed statement. But it is quite hard to have something rock solid when you're in a formation when it's not quite an obvious trend, when it's kind of cramming along in an area. It's a lot harder to say for as a precise area if you're going to go up or down. But I do think we're going to go down and go upwards as just a normal area. However, we do have this kind of price point which we bounced off. It's hard to say, but it does seem like we have bounced off it. This price point, it does seem like we could probably come down again, bounce off it, but we're very tight. And as I always say, when there's an EMA, when there's an EMA and a support or resistance point, and it meets the price, we have big movements in terms of positive or negative. So if we do stay below this midpoint for the breaker block and just kind of stay in this really small area for Solana, and the EMA starts to catch up with us, let's say, we'll get very tight in our price action and kind of bounce, either rocket down or rocket upwards. But in general, of how Bitcoin's going to start to go upwards again, it probably might be a positive movement. But what's also reassuring is how the EMA is pretty much at the midpoint of this breaker block. So, that is good to see as well. That it's kind of coinciding with what I'm saying. Whether they're quite it's quite strung together. That they have no correlation in the slightest. However, we do respect the EMA quite often. Especially over here, we do kind of arcing, bouncing off it and coming upwards, and now we've broken below it. But the EMA, it hasn't actually gone grey, so we're not in a bearish trend or anything. So similar with how I was saying with Bitcoin, we've not got a lot of room to go downwards, but we should start to see ourselves go upwards pretty soon. With Ethereum, I think we have the same situation. We don't have a lot to go down. We could go down, but we have a lot of room to go upwards. I think the same for Solana. We don't really have too much to go down, but I think we could see ourselves go to the top of our range again, even possibly like going to the 114 mark. But we're basically range bound. We're in a range for pretty much all these main coins. So there's not really much for me to say other than that. So that is basically the main three coins, which I normally cover. So I'm basically going to move on to Pepe and Phil now. However, I will look at the comments quickly just to see if anyone's said they want me to cover anything else. It doesn't seem like it though. So I will prompt it again. If you do want me to cover a coin, before the stream ends, then do put it in the comments. If you're in Binance, put it a couple times. And if I do miss anything out, or if you do want to say anything, go join our Telegram, put it in the trading area. Come talk to me. I didn't mean to reload there. There we go. So first one I'll look at is Pepe, as it was asked first. Move back. There we go. There we go. Next. See. Okay. I haven't done any tier on Pepe in a while. I don't even know if I've drawn it on here. I'll try to go back. It might be on Binance. I'm not sure. I'm going to start fresh, obviously. I just want to see if there's anything I've already drawn which might have, stayed consistent. But Pepe, let's have a look. So, looks like we're fighting at this resistance point here. It does also look like we're kind of in a range right now. Obviously, the midpoint kind of being something considerable. If I draw here, this kind of looks like the midpoint. We can see, we kind of bounced, we bounced off it, tested above it, bounced off it, stayed above it now. So it does look like there is a considerable midpoint at about 1208, which I'll draw. However, no, actually, let me be confident in this. Let me draw it from the dotted lines. There we go. I want to be really accurate with this midpoint. There we go. Perfect. So that's the midpoint. Yeah, I think I drew that pretty well. At 1208, yeah, like I said. So it looks like we're kind of fighting at this resistance support point right now at 1236. Now, if we do break above this, let me kind of zoom out and see an overall thing going on right now. Okay, so I'm looking. It kind of seems like we're kind of in a negative situation, bouncing and now kind of going upwards. So if we kind of squint our eyes, it looks like we kind of could be in this big situation right now going on. Obviously, this was action when probably prices were moving pretty rapid. So this was previous action. So we could see ourselves continue to go upwards towards the 13 mark for Pepe. Sorry. Now trying to I like to make a statement of upwards or downwards movement before I go into market cipher, just to see if we can have either conflict or support of our interest, I suppose. So, we are at this resistance point. It does look pretty hefty, as we have bounced off it, a couple of times. We did, we tested below it, came back upwards, bounced numerous of times, even bounced off it over here. So it does look like a tried and tested price point. And as we do say, and as a lot of people always say, if support turns to resistance and that support point was very strong, it will be a very strong resistance point. So obviously this isn't a printed candle. This is 10 o'clock candle. So this has happened over 8 minutes. So this printed 8 minutes ago. So it's not like we're going to print above and below. But we were doing the same thing at 9 o'clock when I started the stream roughly. And we were above and below it quite consistently, but we printed below. So, and what matters more is if we print above or below it. So it does look like we're still fighting. So it's quite hard to say right now. This is a very difficult situation when you're at a resistance point, if it's going to be support or resistance. But looking at Mark Cipher, we can see we're quite, we're getting towards the heavily overbought mark. Telling us we should come down right now, which does coincide with our movement. As we have downwards movement, we've had pretty much consistent green candles upwards, which consistently going upwards over a pretty long, not a long period of time, over like a couple hours, it would make sense to come downwards again. But that is just a general idea I like to keep for myself. When if you go up, if you have like 4 green wicks up, it is very what's the word for it? Quite unsustainable. I'm trying to see if there's anything I have missed, like an order block or anything like that. There could be something over here, maybe. It might be quite strenuous to say though, because we did technically bounce off it a couple of times, but it just looked like we're in a range of our price here. A very neat range, I will add. We also had this fair value gap which we entered and bounced off of, but I'm not going to point that out because it doesn't matter, because it's already been pointed out. And again, we were already below it. I mean, I suppose you could say, if I quickly draw it just to see. Okay, I don't want it to be a fair value gap, so I'm actually going to make. I don't know if it's fair value gap or not now, so I'm going to get rid of the text. If I draw this quickly, it did look like we dipped below it, but we dipped into the fair value gap, went upwards, and then we hovered at it and went upwards again. So it could be something consistent. I'm not going to keep it in mind though. I don't really think it's something too strong. I don't want to waste too much time on it. We could have a situation here though for like an order block. These candles are pretty even. Otherwise, I'm not too sure. I'll keep that on the back burner. I'll just leave it grey. I don't want to state it as a order block, but I will keep it there. But we are quite far away, so it doesn't really matter. But we do have a really positive money flow, which is a good sign if you do want to go up. Our VWAP is starting to go negative. We are quite overbought, not towards the 60 mark. So we've kind of got two things suggesting to us we should go down: the VWAP and the momentum. Obviously, the higher you go, the more you should have chance you have of falling. Kind of, you have the VWAP kind of going up and down, below, above and the below. So we're on the upwards spectrum of things now. Obviously, you can bounce from the 0 point, but we can kind of see this general movement, being a normal, like a wave of the VWAP. And we're on the upper end of that wave now, so what makes sense is what we start to go down below, which we are starting to go down, but come below towards the negative side of VWAP, which is going to be a bearish indication to us that we should come down. But it is going down. The gradient is negative, which is also bearish. So there's a couple things here suggesting to me that we are quite negative. Money flow is positive, so we should see some more positive movement. Maybe even trying to stay above this price point, especially. But something I can say for certain is that we are going to be fighting at this resistance point for quite a while, or maybe not quite a while, but we're not going to be wicking quickly downwards and then above again for the price point. I think we're going to stay pretty consistent at this price point here. But we can kind of see we had this, we had upwards movement for the momentum, and then we kind of had this dip down, and now we're here. We could have a similar situation where we dip down again and go up like that, which would coincide with this downwards and positive action. So we can see, if I have the trend line, we had negative movement bouncing off the midpoint and then going upwards, and then we had this situation where we had our money flow going down and then going to this midpoint and then starting to go upwards again. So that kind of arc kind of looks like the situation we see when we have a bounce off the midpoint. So if I quickly copy paste it, I don't know where that pasted, but I'm pretty sure I pasted it. Okay, that's just there forever now. But if I draw it along, we kind of have upwards movement. It looks like these are equal points on the money flow. As we can see, it's pretty equal. This top point here and this top point here. So we could see, wave upwards and then come downwards again, which coincides again with my arrow and with pretty much everything else. We're quite overbought. VWAP is negative. So I think we should show signs of maybe staying at this point of the resistance area, kind of trying to hit ourselves above it, and then maybe failing and coming down to the midpoint for a 2% movement downwards. However, if we print above this resistance point and make it like a support, quite a strong support point, we could see ourselves maybe hover at a support point before we start to go upwards. But regardless, I think we do have some sort of bearish movement coming very soon. But bearing in mind, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, both, all three of them look like they have a slight bit of negative movement before they go upwards. Obviously, there's degrees of magnitude. There's not a theta. There's a nu. It's like a coefficiency. I think there's a word for it. A coefficiency number, which is basically the magnitude in which something has a multiplication. So, for example, Bitcoin is like 1. Let's say Solana might have like a 1.2 multiplication of the action of Bitcoin. It's not true, per se, but it's kind of the general trend. And people say Bitcoin's kind of the trend leader of crypto markets. So, if Bitcoin's going down and Solana's going down, Solana's not going to have the exact same percentage movement as Bitcoin will, but it will have a rational percentage movement of Bitcoin. So I don't know what that is for Pepe, but seeing as though we still have a possible negative movement for Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, we could have that similar situation for Pepe, and that number which I'm talking about could be enough to point us down towards our midpoint. If I can, it could be a 2%, so it could be like, let's say if Bitcoin moves 1%, so this Pepe situation, it could be a 2 times value to bring us down to this midpoint and then go upwards again. So yes, that's what I kind of think. Regardless though, like I was saying, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana all look like they're going to go up for quite soon. So comparing that to what Pepe is doing, we could have a bounce off here and then a pretty large movement upwards, maybe breaking this resistance point. But again, like I said, we're going to be hovering at this resistance support point. But it doesn't matter what we do right now. It matters if we print above this resistance point. But that's quite, I think, for Pepe. I think we might have some more negative movement in us, even though our money flow is positive. It's too equal for it to be. It looks like it might be a consistent trend. Mikey, I did see you put a Litecoin. I haven't actually said it, but I was in the middle of doing the Pepe TA. But I have written it down on my list. So I'm going to be covering FIL. And then I don't think I've looked at this coin. I might have. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I would have drawn it on this chart though. But obviously I will be doing it fresh. And then I will look at Litecoin, and then that will probably be it. Obviously, we've had quite a lot. It's been quite a long stream already. So you've had, if you're just joining, it's fair enough. But if you've been in the chat for quite a while, you've had quite enough time to put a coin down. So might have to miss it off. So Filecoin, very interesting. So it looks like quite an interesting movement. We kind of actually, I'll look at that later. I'll probably post it. I had an API free as a big thing to look at. I haven't actually looked at it again. So if anyone was actually interested in that chart, I will probably put it in the trading area on Telegram. So do go check that out. I'm trying to see if there's anything consistent with like an order block or anything. But similar with how Ethereum was, we're at a really high point we've seen in a while now. Or I don't even know if this is the highest point we've ever seen. No, it's not. But we're at a really high point we've seen in a while. So the best I've got is really just looking at if there was a consistent price point back here, which it does look like. It does look like we have this price point, this kind of rough $7.80 kind of area for our price. So bearing that in mind, going back to where we are right now, we do have. Okay, wow, I'm not going to bother looking at anything else. Really, 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 really overbought. And we have a red dot. Again, we've kind of been hovering here though. the difference between hovering it here and now is that we've got a neutral money flow looking like we could go down, and that our VWAP is starting to go down. I don't know, looking at this market cipher, I don't know if Filecoin has gone up based on news or not, because this is looking kind of not manipulated but external. We see kind of this action where we have a red dot, green dot, red dot, green dot, red dot, green dot. This kind of situation where we have, you know, very timid movement in anything. It indicates to me, a timid movement in market cipher with nothing really pointing towards any sure direction. However, the price is rapidly going upwards. It indicates to me that something external is kind of going on Filecoin, and I'm not really caught up on the Filecoin news. Could maybe look it up. I don't really know if there's anything going on. Okay, yeah. So integrates with Solana. Okay, right, that makes sense. So. Solana, right, that makes sense. So, as I was just saying, what's happening. So, basically, we're looking at the two last coins now, at Filecoin and Litecoin. I think I've already drawn TA for Litecoin, so it might be quite a quick thing, but we're ending the stream quite soon. But, yeah. Might cover it yesterday. Right, okay, yeah. So, as I was just saying, I was saying, and I'm glad I recognise this, this market cipher structure, we've seen this quite often when there's something external to do with the price. So this quick, red dot, green, I've already just said this, red dot, green dot, red dot, green dot, just everything's very timid. It's all very, like, non-distinguishable. It indicates to me, and, I just said, we have nothing really going on in market cipher, yet our price is rapidly going upwards. As I just said, I keep on saying that. It indicates to me that something external has happened with the price, or with the project, which isn't covered in the chart data. Lo and behold, 9 hours ago, a day ago, partnered with Solana, yada yada. So it's going to be going up. So and this was very recent news, so it's going to be quite hard for me to tell you the trend when it's going up based on news. But it's still positive news. So we still have a positive movement. However, it was going up pretty rapid. It looks like it snapped out of its trance here. So we're in this trance of this kind of hoverage, yet our price is still going upwards. We broke out of it, and now we're looking like we're going to go down a bit. So regardless of if we go down to this point here or continue to go downwards, it does indicate to me that we could see ourselves start to arc downwards towards negative. Yeah, it's hard for me to say. I don't want to say that. So whatever I say right now, please take it with a lot of pinches of salt, because this is news-based movement, so it's going to be quite hard for me to tell based on chart action what the news is going to do. But I think we should see a recession of the price some point soon. This is just heavily gone up, and especially with news-based things. Obviously, it makes sense it goes up. It's not going to come all the way back down to where it was exactly. It might not anyway, but we should see some sort of movement downwards at some point, maybe to $7, something like that. Just some point downwards. We have to see something move down. We can't. It's not a sustainable movement, especially just the fact it's not anything related to price action or chart data. It's something based externally, which does, especially a partnership with Solana values Filecoin, higher, especially, that is non-negotiable. But it should still have a recession in the chart action. So I would expect to see something recess in terms of Filecoin. VWAP is kind of going downwards. Money flow is kind of going downwards. It's all kind of going downwards. It's all kind of hovering. So we have to see something go down. I don't know when that is. We could see it bounce. And the reason I have $7.80 right there was it was a previous high point for the price. So, we could see ourselves go as high as $7.80. If we do, I'm more than certain that we should start to go downwards for it. But I don't know how sustainable this is going to be to make us go to $7.80. So I'd be careful with Filecoin in terms of what I've just said, because it's quite rough to say. I'm going to move quite rapidly because there's been more asks. So I will go to Litecoin. I think I've already covered a bit ago, so there shouldn't be too much for me to draw. I clicked the wrong one. There we go. Where is it? That should be it. I think I've already drawn on it. I think I have anyway. There we go. Yeah. So what? It was ages ago, man. Yeah, it was a bit rough. Okay. I'm doing this quite quickly. So, okay, we're in a range. Cool. It looks similar to how Pepe was. Overbought. Could see ourselves start to arc down a bit. Money flow is going upwards. So, you know what? This is the same as Pepe. I'll say the same thing. Our money flow is arcing like this, as we saw with Pepe. Similar money flow. or similar momentum, similar VWAP, and a similar situation in terms of being in a range. So I'm going to draw the same thing I drew for Pepe, but the difference is we have a midpoint here. Also, there's no more. I'll cover TRX and ApeCoin. I'll have a quick look at them. Nothing more now because the stream's gone on for a bit long. So if you do want anything else covering, go to our Telegram, put it in the chat, put it in the trading area. So I'll draw the same thing. We'll be in a range. It does depend on if we print above this, but I don't think we will. We've bounced off this too many times for it to print above. So I think we're gonna come down to $70.50. MarketCypher isn't really telling us that right now. It's still telling us we should go up, but based on this resistance point and whatnot, we should kind of go down. And like I talked about with the coefficient number in terms of how much Solana goes down or anything based on Bitcoin, for example. If things, Ethereum, Solana, and Bitcoin all have a way down before we start to go upwards. So we could see ourselves go downwards 1%. Bitcoin has a 1% movement downwards anyway, so I wouldn't be surprised if we move down 1%. Because Bitcoin has a 1% movement downwards. We've been in this range for a while now. Well, not a while, but basically a day, kinda maybe. So I wouldn't be surprised if we continue to go downwards. Maybe to $70.70. We kind of had this price point here. We can see about here. We can see we kind of bounced off it here, kind of entered it and bounced off here, bounced it here, bounced here. So it could be $70.70. So I might move this up a bit. But I think we're going to go down for Litecoin. It does depend on if we print above or below this resistance point. But I think we do have a negative movement for Litecoin. So, Ape, USDC. So I don't think I've looked at Ape yet in terms of the chart action. Again, it's the same situation. Really high money flow. VWAP is in the same situation. Momentum's kind of in the same situation. It all does kind of matter if we print above this resistance point. However, I will draw the same thing, like I said. Looking at if there's anything consistent, it doesn't really look like it. I'm just going to say the same thing. If we print, I don't really care what this does because we're 25 minutes into this candle. If we print above it and continue to go upwards, fine. We might go to $1.80. Have we reached this price point ever before? We have. Let's see what a previous price point may have been. Bounced off it there. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, but about $8, $1.81. I'm gonna draw that there. Whoops. So I come down. It's always a faff to go all the way back and all the way forward. So this is what I kind of say. If we print above this resistance point and stay above it and keep our momentum going upwards, we could see $1.81. However, if it moves how I think the majority of other things are going to move, we still have some movement downwards. We could see ourselves go towards either the midpoint or continue to go downwards. Like I said, we're going to wick up and down. The candle hasn't printed yet. I don't really care what the price does, if we print or not and whatnot. So I do see a movement downwards for ApeCoin. It does seem like the same situation with Bitcoin. What it's doing, I think Solana is the same thing. More so Solana, Litecoin, ApeCoin right now. Pepe, they all kind of look like they're doing the same thing. Let me have a look at this one now. Let me have a look at Tron. I don't think I've drawn anything recently of Tron. So yeah, Tron is the last thing we'll draw. If you do want anything covering, just put it in the chat on trading on Telegram in the trading area. And the links are in the description. So we have this range. I think this resistance point might be a bit of a lie because it was a quick upwards. So I'm going to draw this line here based on where we've come down from. Or where we basically printed at. So looking at it, it looks like we're kind of in a rough area here. We're kind of going upwards, having a positive trend. We're quite overbought. Last time we had this sort of situation, we did go down, but we bounced off the EMA. What we could see happen is, let me get the pen out, is we could recess to the EMA and then maybe come back upwards a bit. Again, we do have quite a positive money flow, but it's not a positive momentum. But we do have VWAP going down and negative, money flow going down, which is quite negative, especially on the 1 hour. And we do have a very heavily overbought momentum, which has kind of arced down, suggesting we should go down. So I do see a negative movement for Tron. That is, regardless, I do see definitely a negative movement for Tron. Maybe towards 136 or 13.6 cents, which does look like we've bounced off it a couple of times. So I will draw a line there. So we could see something like this where because we bounced off it, numerous of times. Like, look, if we zoom in, we bounced off this price point so many times. I can even bring it back here. There we go. I can bring it back here. We bounced off it here, bounced here, bounced here. this is a really consistent price point. So I could see ourselves recess towards the 136 pennies, I suppose you could say. So 136 shillings, and then go back upwards towards probably 137. It's not really a rapid movement, but if you catch this bottom and for the long, you'll see a 1.2%. 10x, 12%, not bad. 20x, 24%, not bad. It does look pretty decent. Obviously, this is this is a pretty calm chart. This isn't we're not fighting anything. We're not doing anything crazy. It looks like a really calm chart. So that's what I'll say for Tron. I do think we will have a negative movement toward 136. If I was you, not financial advice, is what I'm going to do. Put a limit long 136, maybe a 15x, whatever you want. Probably put a stop loss. Let me draw this in. I like this. This is quite a safe little area here. Try get maybe a good risk to reward ratio. Let's see. There we go. So if you could do a free risk to reward ratio is always pretty good. You could probably do a 4 actually. That is pretty good. I mean, I don't really think we're below the EMA. This is pretty. We could wick down. It'd be safer to do a free risk to reward ratio. So you'd put your stop loss at about. It would be nice if it told me. About 135 shillings, whatever, and then obviously put your take profit maybe just a bit below this, something around here. That is a good risk to reward ratio. You could put this a bit lower towards this one here, and then have your stop loss a bit closer to there. This is the bottom of these wicks, about 135. So this looks like a decent trade you could take. Obviously, put a limit order in, to be sure, because it hasn't moved down just yet. Obviously, if it doesn't move down to that price level, your limit order won't go through. There'll be no cost, and it'll just move. So that's what I'd probably recommend for Tron. Not financial advice. That's what I'll do for me. And I think that is it. I spent about 45 minutes covering 2 coins, and I've just covered the majority of all the coins you guys have suggested in like 20 minutes. But thank you for all suggestions. They are greatly welcomed. However, the stream needs to end at some point, so I'm gonna have to end it pretty much now. So if you do want any coins covering, it's easier for me. It's a lot easier for me, and it's easier for you because you will get your coin confirmed. Because I might have missed something in the chat and I haven't seen it, and if you don't put it numerous of times, I won't see it because there's quite a lot of chat on Binance. So do go to our Telegram, do go sign up, go to our trading area and post some coins you want me to cover, or ask me questions, or post charts you want me to go look at. I think I'm going to paste the API free chart because I did cover that, and I forgot to actually put the chart up. So if you do want to check that out, it was a pretty nasty short, I think it was. So that was pretty exciting. But go check the trading area out. Go check the Telegram out in general. There's quite a lot of people in there to go talk to. But if you do want to talk to me or Mike, that's where we'll be. Put your coins there you want me to cover. It's easier for both of us. And I think that is it. Check the description out for all the links. And thank you so much for joining. And I think that's pretty much it. I will check the comments quickly. Someone said bonjour with question mark. Hello. Hello. We are just ending pretty much now. Abdul says, how are you? I'm very good, thank you. I hope you are good. We are just ending the stream there, so if you've just joined, caught it at the worst time, but I'm good. If you do want to check the charts out, the stream is about to end. Go for it back in the stream. It's only been an hour, so this isn't going to be old news. But if you are watching this, we've made 2 Wagman videos. This is completely off topic. We made 2 Wagman videos now, and everyone got mad. And now everyone's mad in a snarky way because the price is starting to go up, even though I covered the coin 3 months ago. So if you are by any chance watching this on catch up, and the date, if you scroll down, it says like a week or 2 ago, or maybe even 3 weeks ago, the price action isn't going to be the same as it is right now. Time frames and dates, you might not understand it, but they are very important when you're looking at charts. But regardless, thank you, all of you, for joining. It is nice to see so many people join us on these streams, and these are my solo streams. I just draw TA. Obviously, Mike is he's like the, I don't know how, he's like the inspector. He just stops like anything that tracks if it's bad. He is like the power force of checking out projects. So if you do want to go any projects you want covering, again, go to the Telegram, paste it in the chat area. I think there might even be a project area, I'm not too sure. Just paste it in there. Say, oh, what do you think about this project? We could make a video of it if we're interested in it. But you know, I'm kind of the TA guy. I draw charts. You know, I don't affect myself with all this news stuff. Obviously, I had to look at the Filecoin news because of how, you know, weird it was. I'm new here, bro. Please teach me something about them live. Well, if you join the lives consistently, I'll be, you know, doing my TA, you know, Monday, Wednesday. Maybe not Friday. We don't do Fridays. Not this Wednesday either, because we're doing a huge giveaway. So do get in on that. I hope everyone's excited for that. We're giving away $50. So you know, that is going to be a huge giveaway. That's the biggest giveaway we've done as of yet. We are partnering with SWGT, I believe they are called. So you know, I won't be doing the Simple Signals stream on Wednesday. However, next Monday, it's quite far away. We don't do Fridays. Monday, Wednesday is normally when we do. I normally do Friday. Friday's an iffy one because we stream on Saturdays as well. Or I go into stream, me and Mike together on Saturday, so I don't always do Friday streams. I might do sometimes, but it's normally Monday and Wednesday. So if you do want, you know, just watch me draw TA. You can ask questions. I'll answer your questions live, easier than it is on private. So you know, if you do want anything, if you're confused of why I might do something or you want to learn something, just ask me a question. I'm live. I'm talking to you right now. Just put a comment in, ask a question, and I'll answer it. Again, also if you want coins covering, I will cover them. Just watch the process. Ask me questions. Ask me things about indicators. I'll ask. You know, most of the time I'm drawing TA, I am talking, but you know, I can still read a comment out while I'm drawing. So you know, if anyone wants, you know, if anyone's slightly new or you know, I'm not going to sit you down one-to-one. Obviously, we could do one-to-one courses, but I don't want to do that. But you know, again, if someone's new, you're confused of why I might do something, or you're just intrigued, ask a question. You know, I'm more than open. But I've talked for way longer than needs be. It's been an hour and 30 minutes. It's been a long stream. So I think that's it. I've got this kind of long thing. It's a risk to reward of free. So just keep that there. The guy who just put a comment, just go in Telegram. I'm not reading that. I need to end this stream. I'm sorry. Go to our Telegram, ask it in the trading area, I'll answer you. But regardless, I'm not answering more questions. I'm going to go now. I've done so many more coins. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you on Wednesday. I'll see you on Saturday. But Monday and Wednesday is when I stream. So thank you, all of you, for joining so much. I do appreciate it. And I will see you. I'll see you on Wednesday. Goodbye. Hold on. There we go. Goodbye.
Come on, Fizzy.